you know, when you have a lot of confusion and chaos around you, it's very difficult to focus on something. And, you know, I knew the value of Janelle. So I said, all right, it was worth it for me to get rid of all my placeholders. So if you're a man and you're even thinking about getting married, um, entertaining the idea, that's the first thing you should ask yourself. All right, can I go ahead and burn all my bridges? Can I get rid of all of my placeholders? Because if you can do that, the chances are is that you're serious, you're real about it. Um, and that makes a world of difference. Um, one thing that I've seen people do, um, one thing that I've seen people do and make the mistake of doing, um, is going and saying that they want to get married, um, but still trying to live their last hurrah. Um, it don't work like that. It does not work like that. Um, so you have to make sure that you kind of cut off all of your exit strategies, so to speak. So that's the first thing. Get rid of your placeholders. The next thing, um, you have to go through a process of comparing and contrasting. Um, um, you have to go through a process of comparing and contrasting your histories with your partner, your history, your partner's history. Um, and you do this in order to establish the call of actions that both of you are going to have in order to make each other optimal. All right. So once again, you have to compare and contrast your histories to see what the call of actions are, that you're going to have to do, the roles and responsibilities that you're going to have to take on in order to optimize not only your marriage, but optimize yourself and help facilitate the optimization of your mate. So when I say that, um, and I think this is, I think women kind of romantically do this or emotionally do this. Men, I don't think so. I think we go and we get married and we don't count the full cost of what we're going into. So when I started to think about my history, I immediately had to seek some guidance. I went to my apostle. I let him know that I was having the urge of asking Janelle to marry me, and I told him from the jump. I was like, I want to marry Janelle. I want to marry Janelle, but I have an issue. And my issue, looking back and looking at my history, I had spent this time getting flowed out, being pseudo single, and living life. And during that time, God was dealing with me on just becoming a better man. And a lot of times when you're going through the process of just becoming a better man, you have to go back and you have to look at your history. You have to look at the things that help develop some of the principles that you have, whether they're flawed or not. Um, so what I realized during that time was that one of the reasons why I could tell a woman I would marry all day, I, I was bad about that. But what kept me from really leaning in and really putting in the work in order to get married and really live out these relationships, to the fullest and with purpose, was that unfortunately, um, out of all the men that I had grew up with and grew under, Um, I only knew of, I think, I know one for sure. I had one in a possible. I had a spades. I had one in a possible, men in my life who, to my knowledge, did not cheat on their wives. Ain't nothing wrong with the tape. I just wanted you to feel that. Um, with except one in a possible. Um, One in a possible. All the other men that I had, had impart into me or had spent time with, had soul ties with, had intimate relationships with. And intimacy meaning spending time, getting to know them, and they getting to know me. Um, Only one in a possible that I I know that did not cheat on their wives. So for me, I've always been a romantic type of individual. Even though like marriage was not the paramount for me. Um, always been a romantic individual. Always liked the feeling of being in love. But the one thing that always stayed in the back of my mind is like, if I'm married, am I gonna cheat? And I take that back. It wasn't that if I married somebody, I would cheat. It was more so of that, okay, I haven't had an example that I can recall that was fully committed, fully monogamous to their wife for their entire marriage. For their entire marriage. And that was a tough pill to swallow for me. So I was like, okay, the way that I operate when it comes to my spiritual self, especially at the time, I thought that my relationship with God was very transactional. I do this. This is what God will see fit to happen, um, and that's how I operated in my ignorance. So I sat down with my apostle and I was like, I'm thinking about asking Jill to marry me. I want to be committed, but I was like, I do have I have a problem area, and I explained to him. I was like, man, I don't know if monogamy real. I was just like, I just can't put it plain and simple. And my apostle challenged me that day. He was like, if this is what you've seen throughout your existence, is that maybe the reason why it's sticking out to you so much is that you are now being called to break that generational curse. Um, and so I took that with a full head of steam. And so once I made the once I made the choice of wanting to marry Janelle and was for sure that she was going to be the one that I was going to marry, and was for sure that um, she was going to become my life's work. I knew right then that everything else was cut off. Everything else was cut off. Me, I never will have to question myself about cheating on my wife, because it's not a possibility. And with it not being a possibility, I'll never put myself in compromising positions. I learned when I was 13 years old, if there's an opportunity for any type of sin or any type of action that tempting action that is placed before you, if you wanna beat it, one of the easiest ways to do so is just to make sure that you don't put yourself in compromising positions. So for me, I don't fraternize with women. You know what I'm saying? Like, y'all can call it lame, y'all call it whatever. That's not what I do. I don't do no flirting, none of that, because I know me. I had to look back at my history. I know that. Look, I ain't the cutest dude in the world. I ain't, I ain't this, I ain't that, I ain't got all the bread, I ain't got this. But one thing that I do know about me, if I want a woman, the only thing I have to do is have a thought-provoking conversation with her. That's it. That's it. Have a thought-provoking conversation with her. And I used to use that as my boob trap. That was my boob trap. If you was a sapiosexual, I was the one for you. You know, because I like stimulating conversation. I'm somewhat of an intellectual, and so a lot of times that was the major attracting point to women to me. So me no understanding and taking a look at my history, I then understood that, hey, I can't operate like this no more. You know what I'm saying? I can't put myself in compromising positions. So it's very seldom that you would even see me having a conversation with, just having this free conversation with women, because I understand I'm also an economist. Ain't no such thing as free lunch. No, you won't catch me, shouting. Nah. Mm-mm. And that was how it was at first. But now I can, deliverance is different. Deliverance is just that you don't even have the taste for it anymore. And that's where I'm at in my life. I want to please God. I want to please my wife. I want to be pleasing to God. I want to be pleasing to my wife. I want to be pleasing to my daughter. And I want to be pleasing to my family. And I want to be pleasing to my community. And if it's anything that could potentially take away from that, I don't want any parts of it. Really don't. Um, and so later, and then, taking a look at your history is one part, but going through the process of taking a look at the history of your partner is paramount. It's paramount. You have to be prepared to fill in all the gaps that your partner has, because the intention of marriage is to become one and fill each other up. But if you don't understand the voids that you have and the voids that your potential life partner has, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough. And that was one of the mistakes that I believe that I made, was that I never clearly really thought about my wife's history. I never really clearly thought about it. So once we got married, we had a lot of obstacles, and it was because I never took account her history. I never really understood what exactly she needed versus what she was looking for. I know I was what she was looking for because she rocked with me for so long. You know what I'm saying? I guess it was so long, but she rocked with me. You know what I'm saying? She loved me. So I know I was what she was looking for. But did I meet her historical needs? And so when I say historical needs, I hope she don't get mad at me about saying this, but it ain't like it's a trade secret. I never really took into account that my wife's father died when she was young. I never took an account of that. And that this is some of the things that I call. So when we first got married, there was a lot of we was Tupac and Biggie. We was Tupac and Biggie when it came to certain things in our marriage, and I never really understood it. I was just like, I'm just losing my patience. I ain't dealing with this. Like, you gonna stop trying me? And it was once again, I had a conversation with my apostle, and he informed me. He was like, yeah, what daddy died when she was younger. So how can you hold her to standards that your father instilled in you over these, at this time, I think I was 33, 34, 35, something. I was 30 something. Over these 30 some odd years, how can you hold her to the same expectations when her father died when she was a kid? father died when she was in elementary school. So you've had 30 some odd years of fathering. She only had this portion. So there's a disproportion relationship right there. And so the part of being married and becoming the one is that, okay, she had this fathering experience. It was this big. My fathering experience was this big. But now what we need to do, we have to figure out a way and understand each other to where we can now combine both of those and then build out. And that's what marriage is about. You have to take the person that you are. You have to accept them for who they are. Then you have to understand why they are the way that they are. And then you have to come to terms with, okay, this is my role. This is my responsibility. And these are the call to actions that I have to that I have to do. Because my whole goal, especially as a man, our responsibility as men, we know we gotta protect, we know we gotta provide, we know we gotta be the leader, we gotta be the covering, we gotta be these things, we gotta be this, we gotta be that. But one of the biggest things that you are as a husband, you have to be your wife's healer. You have to be her healer, and she has to be your healer. You guys have to be able to put yourselves in a position to where you can help facilitate healing for one another. That's one of the hidden gems and one of the biggest obstacles of marriage. When you decide that you want to marry somebody, you got to be able to say, okay, I'm ready to heal her. And the crazy thing about healing is that if I break my arm, right? If I break my arm, I gotta go to a doctor. They first got to see where exactly it's broken, because depending on where it's exactly broken is going to depend what type of cast that I'm going to have on. My cast is the protection during my healing process. So you got to be the doctor. You got to be the doctor. You got to be the cast. You got to be the hanger that's going to itch, that's going to scratch the itch inside of the cast. You have to be all of these things. You have to be all of those things in order to facilitate the healing of your wife. You have to do an examination. You have to say, okay, Mom, all right, I see this. I see this as a pain area for you. All right, if I want to be your husband, that means that I have to take this on, and I got to lean in, and I have to help facilitate your healing, and I have to be your cast. I got to keep you protected, and then part of being the cast sometimes though is that the cast can be uncomfortable. Sometimes we have to understand that we're gonna make our mate uncomfortable, but the uncomfort that we're giving them is not comfort that's going to cause loss. This discomfort is discomfort that's facilitating healing. So you have to be ready and able to expect those things. Now, the next thing is also a pretty big one. Coming to terms with your sexual purpose. All right. So coming to terms with your sexual purpose. Now, every person has a couple of different purposes. The first purpose that you have is from the time that you're born, usually to around, pre-adolescence or mid-adolescence, is your inherent purpose. Those are the things that you say that you want to be, are the things that you don't want to be based upon your environment around you during your rearing years. So if you grew up in a house that was full of firefighters, and it's one of two things that are either gonna happen. You're gonna say, "Hey, I'm gonna be a firefighter," or are you gonna say, "No, I'm not going to be a firefighter." Those are your inherent purposes. We go through those inherent purposes all the way into post-pubescence. So, almost until you almost like between 18 and 22, depending on your maturation rate. So that's your inherent purpose. After the inherent purpose, though, inherent purpose and sexual purpose, they intermingle. They occupy the same space for some time. So usually it starts at puberty. We start to develop, especially men, usually around the age of 9 or 10, when puberty is first starting. We start to formulate what we believe to be our sexual purpose is. And part of formulating your sexual purpose, you have to know, one, who you are, two, what you are, and three, who you want to be, right? So men, we start to formulate our entire existence off of the possibility of tangible sexual expression. All right. So we start to formulate who we are based upon what we're willing to do to achieve the opportunity to express ourselves sexually. We put on to get the coochie. All right. I'm dumb it down. Men put on to get the coochie. And a lot of men, this is where their circles of purpose stop. A lot of men. They get to the second circle and they can't ascend to the next circle. Is because they're constantly going around in a generational curse. They're constantly going around in this cyclical nature. And what I found and what I know that every man needs to do this before they even start to think about being married. You have to come to terms with your sexual purpose. And to me, coming to terms with your sexual purpose is understanding that your life is not about your pursuit of sexual expression. You have to be ready to transition from living a life in the pursuit of sexual expression. You have to be willing to transition to living a life of purpose with sexual intention. All right. So as a married man, I have to come to terms with who I am sexually, what I want, how I want it, when I want it, and what I'm willing to do to get it, right? Once you start to understand that, you have to go throughout, you have to master the process of saying, she will be enough. But see, a lot of men don't want to come to terms with that because a lot of men, men are designed to be farmers, but a lot of men live their lives as hunter and gatherers. A lot of men live their lives as hunters and gatherers. And the thing about living the life of a hunter and gatherer is that you're constantly on the move. And if you're constantly on the move, you can never sit down, commit to changing your entire existence and your entire way of survival. If you're a hunter and gatherer, you never get to that point to where you can actually settle down, stop and say, okay, I'm going to change the way that I know how to survive. And I'm going to make this area work for me. If you can't come to terms with your sexual purpose, you're always going to be a hunter and gatherer. You're always just going to be moving. You're going to be led by the herd. And if you are being led by the possibility of sexual expression, how can you ever be a leader? How can you ever really be a leader? And one of the prerequisites of being a husband, you got to be able to lead. You got to be ready to lead. And so you have to come to terms with your sexual expression, your sexual life. Because if you don't, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad. Like I don't know anybody who has lived a life who couldn't come to terms with their sexual purpose, and live good lives. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, some people might say Hugh Hefner, but don't nobody know what he was going through. Even though was pimping. But you have to come to terms with that. You have to be able to say who you are, what you're willing to do, how you're gonna do it, and say, all right, is this person enough? Is this one person that I'm looking for to spend my life with? Will they be enough? Will they be enough? And if you can't answer that question, you got to be like Smokey Mama. Make it enough. All right. Now, the next one is actually the third ring of purpose, which is legacy. Usually once a man comes to terms with his sexual purpose, he begins now to think legacy. And so before you even start to think about settling down and looking for a woman, whoever your potential mate is, you have to question yourself on what legacy you want to build with them. And then once you question yourself about it, that's a conversation that you and that individual need to have. You need to make sure that you guys are at least in the same book. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could be Old Testament and I could be New Testament. We still in the same book. We can meet somewhere. But if your book in Latin and my book in French, and ain't neither one of us got Rosetta Stone, boy, look here, that is not what you want. You got to make sure that you understand what you want to leave. You got to understand, like, what you want your children to have, your children's children to have. And you got to understand, and you got to come to an understanding that this is our purpose. This is what we're doing right now. You see it all the time in like rom-coms where, the husband might want to have kids, but the wife doesn't want to have kids, and they never really talked about it. But then, in some type of social setting, that question is asked, and the husband was like, "Oh yeah, we must definitely have a kid." And the wife looking at him crazy and all that. Yeah, that's real. That's real if you're not having questions about what you want your legacy to be. All right, so make sure that you have those conversations about your legacy. And then the last thing, and then I'm gonna go ahead and end it because we've spent a lot of time. The last thing, si vis pacem para bellum. Say it again. Si vis pacem para bellum. What that means, if you want peace, prepare for war. All right? If you want to be married, you got to prepare. And you gotta prepare like you're finna go to war. When you go to war, you just don't, war is not fights. A fight is somebody bumping into me, get disrespectful, something crazy, and we fight, we throw hands. War is totally different. War is strategic. War is, all right, I'm finna go to war with buddy. I got to get X, Y, and Z. I got to build up. Pac said it right. Pac said, man, y'all don't understand what Pac was saying. For one, Pac said, ain't no real war until I got my money right. I got my money right. Now I want war, right? If you want peace in your life, if you want to be married, man, you better prepare. You gotta prepare like it's war. You gotta stockpile. You gotta put things in order. You gotta put things in movement. And if you're not ready to take on that call, you don't need to be married, cuz. Yeah, if you ain't ready to prepare for war, you ain't ready to get married. Because when you're looking at the marriage, a lot of times we get caught up in the butterflies and rainbows, but we gotta get ready for what that boy say. Um, what my boy say? This we know for sure. Tell me, baby, can you stand the rain? You better go buy your raincoat because it's gonna rain. You better get some umbrellas. You better get some ganaches, all that. The overall little plastic, little yellows, all that. You better listen, because it's gonna take all that. It's gonna take all of that in order for you to survive. Because you gotta understand, man, especially as a man, your survival. It's not about survival no more. Now you're existing with another person. You can survive by yourself. You can survive by yourself. You can survive by yourself. But when you get married, you transition from survival and just existing to now you living. You got to live with this person. Because that's what it's designed to do. It's designed to bring out the life in you. Everything about marriage is designed to bring life out of you, not kill you. Not kill you. So if you want peace, if you want to get married, Parabellum. Man, I appreciate y'all listening to me. I hope that you were informed. I hope that something touched you. And if it did, let me know. Let me know if I'm doing a good job. Let me know if it sucks. All right? Let me know what I can do to make it better. So, go ahead and follow us on Instagram at Coach Kellen Inspires. You can also catch us at the Jewels and Tools podcast on Instagram, on YouTube. Please make sure that you subscribe and turn on your notifications to the Coach Kell channel. Like I said, we pushing these out, pushing them out. What else? Oh, Facebook, Kellen Gerard Allen. And then the Coach Kell page on there. And if you're a dude, and well, not if you're a dude, if you enjoy video games, once a month I'm gonna send out notifications to all of my subscribers and followers. PlayStation 5 coming out, and if you want to play, I put out a schedule, and you guys, I probably send out like a sign up gene or something crazy like that. And if you want to sign up to play, we can play and we can talk. Because that's what I'm transitioning to. I just want to have conversations. Me and my dog, she used to call it soul sessions back in the day when we was there on that hill. We used to call them soul sessions. And I'm ready for those again. So I appreciate you turning in. Have a great rest of your week. Keep pushing. And hi, this is Kellen. Have a good one.